Hello and welcome to From the Couch Sports Talk Radio. So we're kind of renaming the show to the Sports Talk Roundtable because we're going to be talking about a lot more things besides the NFL. So tonight we're going to be talking about Major League Baseball, the UFL, and we will be picking the all-time From the Couch football team. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later. And so before we begin, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for all of our content. So the NFL draft is 8 days away. Here's a quick reminder for our contest we're running. If you go on to ProFootballNetwork.com, do a one-round draft. Whichever viewer of ours has the most correct in the top 10 will win From the Couch t-shirt. So email those, take a screenshot of it, and email to ftcsports1.com. And if it's a tie at 10, we'll go on beyond that. For those of you who suck at drafting, go on to our website at ftcsportstalkradio.etsy.com, and you can buy your shirts there. Okay, so before we get into this week's coin toss questions, we have a couple of news things we're going to go over real quick. Devontae Smith signed a 3-year extension with the Philadelphia Eagles with $51 million guaranteed, and that's about $17 million a season, which is pretty good for a number 2 receiver. O.J. Simpson died at 76. He was the only running back to have a 2,000-yard season in 14 games. So it's safe to say that he killed it in 1973 as well as 1994. And Applebee's has been named the official restaurant bar of the NFL this week. And if you ever eat at Applebee's after 30 minutes, you're hoping from a visit from OJ because you probably have blown out an O-ring. Okay, so here is our coin toss question of the week. We need to bring in Eric and KD. I could not ask this one to Jeff or David because wide right. Okay, so gentlemen, the average successful field goal in the NFL at 50 yards is 72.3%. If you had your choice, would you rather have a player from 50 yards in was 100% kicking a field goal? Or would you rather have a punter that every time he punted the ball, it went out of bounds inside the 10-yard line? Eric, what do you think? Who would you rather have? You going for the points or you backing people up?
Well, yeah, I'm going for the points because points are at a premium in the NFL. So if I know I can put points on the board and I know the NFL's offensive driven, and I know I can automatically get 3, I'm going to take the 3 just because of how hard it is to score in the NFL nowadays. I think the average score was somewhere close in the low 20s last year. So give me the points.
All right. KD.
Oh, man. The points are the premium, like Eric was talking about. But I do like the field position thing because now we're talking, hey, that we can change, the dynamics of games because a lot of teams, again, don't go 99 yards either. So since field goals don't win games by themselves, I'm going to take the punt. I'm going to take the 1-yard punt just because.
All right. Well, we're going to be posting this after the show on our website. So, not our website, I'm sorry, our Facebook page. And you all please vote and let us know who gave the better answer. Because that's a That's a toss-up right there. All right, so while before I turn the floor over to David to talk about some baseball, please comment and ask questions, anything pertinent, and in our halftime segment, we'll address those. We're going to put them up on the screen as they happen, but we will talk about them, and then in the second half of our show, in the overtime segment, we'll be doing it again. All right, so let's welcome in David. And let's start talking about Major League Baseball. I know everyone else besides me is going to comment on this. Real quick, funny note, baseball is the only sport which the defense has the ball. And I know some people are going to be commenting about cricket, but that's just baseball with a fucked up bat and you're wearing goalie pads. Okay, so bullshit to this. Anyway. You guys go ahead, take it away. Talk about some of the things that happened since the beginning of the season in baseball.
Well, I'm really gonna turn it over to the baseball fans here. I do know some baseball, but Jeffrey, KD, and probably a little bit more Eric know more baseball than I do. So, Jeffrey, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions. First of all, we know you're a Yankees fan, so give me your take on your Yankees and just how do you feel that they started out the season?
Injured like normal, which is like what's happening. I mean, they're the best team in baseball right now by record, right? But I mean, it's still early. I got to tell you, like, there's some surprising things from the Yankees. I mean, I like the fact that Soto came in and is doing what Soto came in to do. I mean, it's a contract year for him, and if the Yankees have any intent to sign him at the end of the year, they better sign him today, because by the end of the year, if he continues to play like he's playing, it's going to be a Stanton Judge type deal. It's going to be excessive Mike Trout type deal. But overall, man, the Yankees, they're doing fine. I mean, it's early. The AL East, it's funny because the Red Sox are at 9-9 at 500. They finished last place last year, and they're there again this year. But at 9-9 in last place early in the year, but only 3.5 games back. The AL East is a juggernaut, and they're going to continue to be that juggernaut throughout the season. So what it looks like today, where the Yankees are on top and the Red Sox are at bottom, I would, just like almost any other division that I look at across Major League Baseball, I don't believe it's going to end that way at all. I mean, at all.
Alrighty, KD, tell us about your Atlanta Braves and what you think's going on in the NL. Any surprises to you at this point in the season?
No. Again, because I can't get too surprised, because there have been some times to where teams start out hot and then we know they'll hit the slump. Then also teams that are in the slump can turn it around. So no real surprise. For the Braves, we did lose one of our ace pitchers in Spencer Strider to UCL damage. And it sucks, man, because we were already, heavily dependent upon him as it is. There's a push amongst the fan base for the Braves to inquire about Trevor Bauer, see if he's, interested in coming to the Braves. I say, why not? And I know some people looking at this situation that happened and they're like, hey, look, wait a minute. We don't want to do this. And I say, look, if he's here to come in and win us baseball games, by all means, we got to do everything we can, because we watched Atlanta fall apart due to pitching. Because you're not going to get 11 runs every night. You're just not. It's impossible. As hot as your bats are, come, throughout the year, and come October, that fatigue sets in, and it's just it's grueling to go out there night in and night out and expect people to get home runs and so forth. And what ends up happening is you end up striking out a lot, and then the other team just get 4 runs. It's a grind to stay in that game. So, but I like what I'm seeing so far from the Braves. I'm not going to get too high on my horse because they have hurt me in the past when I get too high on them. So I'm cool with where we are. So
Best regular season team ever invented in baseball.
Well, and we got to remember more so than anything, this 162 game season. What is today is not going to be in September, October. So
and something to consider. And this, so a lot of. I mean, I think I busted your chops last year about the Braves losing in the playoffs, and I was kidding. I like the Braves. I mean, I don't have an issue with them. I think their lineup is phenomenal. But I will tell you, historically speaking, there's only been 2 teams to really crush it all season long, break the record, and then one team win the World Series. the reality in baseball is like you take the microcosm, look at the macro, right? And the reality is baseball is streaky, and individuals are streaky, and teams are streaky. And the unfortunate thing for Atlanta specifically last year is that, like Baltimore, they both battled. They hit the ball all year. You didn't find a drop off, and when one player would fall, another player would pick it up, but it wouldn't be such a fall. Well, unfortunately for the Braves and the Orioles in the playoffs, both teams completely offensively shut down. And that was just the worst time that they could have done it. And it wasn't because of the greatness in which they played. It was because it's the statistical reality of the game of baseball. You can look at any team, 5-game, 7-game win streak, 5-game, 7-game lose streak. It happens often, every single year. Unfortunately for the Braves, they had their lose streak when it mattered the most, which is, again, why, go back to the 90s and you look at all those AL East champions, all those NL East championships, and then NL championships, but only one ring to produce a World Series. And it was they consistently, and they were, to me, they were the team of the decade. And I don't care what their World Series record was. It was phenomenal. That team was just gargantuan, just beastly. And this team, man, its lineup is sick all the way to 9. So the Braves are going to be in. Dave, real quick, and I'll go ahead and ask Eric. I got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm going to let Eric talk because, speaking of the greatest teams of all time, I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates because they won the World Series in '77. So, that team is just to beat. So, Eric, tell me about your Pittsburgh Pirates.
So, hey, Whitey Herzog died this week. Hey,
oh, did he?
I
didn't know that.
One of the great Cardinal stories. Adam Jennings from work, he's watched the show and he wanted me to make mention of it, and he provided me some stats today at work after I did his job review, and impressive. I appreciate that. He told me, I was looking at the stats, they had 13 home runs, was their leading home run hitter that year, and they won playing small ball, and they won the World Series that year with pretty great pitching and pretty great defense. So I think he'll be missed, and rest in peace, Whitey Herzog, to a great franchise and a great manager back in the day. But so the Pirates, they've already begun their slide, and they stink and they suck. And in Pittsburgh, we moved on to the Steelers, and we're talking Steeler football already because the Pirates just got swept by the Mets, and we're moving on. We're 11-8, and we're falling apart. So. We don't have high expectation for the Pirates because they have poor ownership who aren't committed to winning, which our host and our co-host up top know all about. So ideally, they need to spend money and invest in their team, and either be all in or sell the team and to Lemieux, or sell the team to somebody who gives a crap, Mark Cuban, who would try to put a winner out there. But they've got some good young players that they'll trade for prospects that'll come up in 2030 that are like 15 years old down in Venezuela. So I look forward to 2030, potentially having a young team that can strike lightning in a bottle.
Hey, something of note, right? And like, this is my favorite time of baseball right now. Like, as we sit right now, I like it because there isn't a team that's out of it. Don't get me wrong, Colorado's god awful, Miami's off. I get that stuff. But when you look at Pittsburgh, they're a game out, and I get that. You look at Cincinnati, they're not bad. There's teams that are just in it right now, right? But here's the last thing I'll say, which is a big deal for Pittsburgh, is that Andrew McCutchen, who found his way back to Pittsburgh, hit his 300th home run this week. And I got to tell you, so McCutchen came to New York, cut his hair off and all that stuff, and now he's growing it back out, and he was really upset. He made some comments about the Yankees and all that good stuff, but I won't get into that. Not about the Yankees. His comment was ludicrous, in my opinion, not caring what the Yankees standard is. But at the end of the day, I love Andrew McCutchen. I liked him since he was a rookie, watched him play in every single team he's played on, and the fact that he hit his 300 home run back with Pittsburgh is really awesome. And if you didn't see the video of the little boy who caught his home run that brought it back to him after the game, it's worth watching, and I'll find it and share it out on their page. It was actually really cool, and then he signed a bat for him and everything. It was just really awesome. So, bottom line is, baseball's back in the swing. It's early. Every team's a contender. Yes, there's some edge on favorites, and there's the power rankings that'll shift every week from now until the end of the season, 162 games away or whatever it is. But man, it's just going to be exciting. And when I look at the league leaders from the Braves to the Brewers to the Dodgers, then you go to the Texans, the Guardians, and the Yankees. For most people that I saw that actually like on these ESPNs and stuff that wrote the way it would finish, that's pretty accurate to what they said would finish. I, on the other hand, didn't have that as my finish, and I don't think it will end up the way it is right now as my finish. But anyway, neither here nor there.
Yeah. One thing, Eric, I do want to say, I was only kidding about the Pirates. They were my favorite team. I used to love Kent DeCalvey and all those guys back in the 70s, and they were great. So I was only kidding about the Pittsburgh Pirates and giving you crap.
You know what's funny, Dave?
I do want to ask the panel before we wrap up the baseball segment one very serious question, and I want your opinion. Angel Hernandez has been named umpire chief umpire for all the umpires. Give me your opinion of this clown. I don't even know how he's going up.
I'm going to say just a couple words. I'm going to go away. I think it's hilarious, right, that we hear Eric complain from week 0 negative to week end positive about Roger Goodell and his bullshit. That's fine. I get that. I mean, it's fine. But the fact that Major League Baseball created this opportunity for Angel Hernandez to even still have a job, let alone be the chief of the umpires, is ludicrous. This dude is the single worst, and this isn't like an opinion, by the way, statistically proven worst official umpire in the history of Major League Baseball. And I'll tell you again, this kind of goes back to my racial conversation, which I happen to bring up. It's one of those things to where, what's the narrative? There's no way in hell he's that job without some other ridiculousness that he's got on the side of him, because Angel Hernandez is absolute trash, period.
Who is the
no. Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
Who was the referee with the Jesse James catch? Was that isn't he doing the rules analyst for CBS now? Al Riveron?
Al Riveron, probably.
Yeah, it's something very similar to that, because that guy was a moron and sucked at officiating. And Goodell's officials suck because they're not consistent about knowing the rules. And then they give him a rules analyst, like, I need to listen to him explain to me what the rules are when he doesn't even know what the rules are. I mean, so it's the same thing. You got a guy who doesn't even know what the rules. We could get into baseball and commissioners and all that stuff, but they're only worried about their being politically correct and putting money in their pocket.
And for me, man, it hurts the game because look, if it was speculation or if it was opinionated and it was unproven or whatever, I would be like, all right, let's give the guy a fighting chance, right? But it's basically known that he's been out there shape-shifting the outcome of games. And I don't like that at all, because, again, the sport itself has went through its bad times as it is, right? To the point to where, we were thinking a couple of years ago, baseball was going to basically, ride off into the sunset and not be this thing that we all love, right? So for me, I just think that's another stained image on the game of baseball itself, because now we're talking, look, we don't even care about the integrity of the game. We just care about putting certain people in power. And I don't like that at all, because even one of us on this panel can do a better job at that, because we can kind of read over the handbook, determine what the rules are, and have a very objective view of the game itself. And I just think you don't get that with Mr. Hernandez. So,
right. All right, gentlemen. Well, that was a great talk on baseball. We'll check back later on in the season and see how that goes. But right now, I'm going to bring Sean back into the mix here. Sean, step on into the stage and introduce us to our next segment.
All right. In our second quarter, we're going to go to Jonathan, who is our behind-the-scenes man here at From the Couch. We're going to be discussing the UFL. So if we could put up the clip, because this is a really good clip I came across today of the 10 best plays of week 3.
Troy Williams gets it off.
Turn with it up. Another high snap. Perez sidearms one, and a trick play as they lateral it to Davion Smith, and Smith dragging defenders down to the 35-yard line.
Going in the right direction, but here comes the heat.
Blitz coming. Troy Williams gets it off, takes a hit along the way, and is picked off. And that's a safety.
Injury slowed him down junior and senior year. Sinnott picked off. Kai Nakua, give me that. The Nakua family knows one thing: dominating in the game of football.
Pressure coming. Completes it, Vinny Papali, and it's tied. Let's see if they give it to him. Marable in motion. Looking, tipped. Oh, and caught for the touchdown.
But they have not been able to capitalize. Perez floats one to the end zone. Touchdown! Tyler Bonds, his 6th catch of the game.
As that sheet is set with no running backs, McCarron needs a deep one. He has got it. Butler skies for it. First down, Battlehawks.
And so they don't have to think so much. They just play fast, and they're showing it. Martinez over the middle, down the sideline, touchdown, Birmingham.
Then he set up the wheel route to his left. He waited plenty of time. He was back there cooking steaks.
Sewell with the pressure from inside. Perry gets away with it. Low throw. Sims is up. He's scooped sideline. He's already got one from 76. Give him another. Goodbye, Marcus Sims.
And that's why Houston's 0-3.
66-yard touchdown for the Mountaineers.
Nice.
He's back there cooking steaks. Never heard that one before. That's pretty good.
No, hey, that's awesome. Great video there, Sean.
Yeah, and that is, I can't believe I'm not watching, because that's some good football.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I wanted to get on here and talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. The couple things before we get into it, I would love to see that. This is such a great vehicle for people who didn't get drafted to show their stuff, because we've had people from the UFL go into the NFL. And also, we were talking last week, and you brought up some things that we don't get to see in the NFL versus UFL. Yeah. So if you go over a couple of those quick things and then just describe everything. Take it away, John.
Real quick, the UFL is the United Football League, and this is basically the birth child of the combination of the XFL and the USFL. Both of those being former attempts at the spring football league, right? Because I guess they kind of consider the springtime like an untapped market for football. And I agree. I mean, I've often said I wish football was a year-round kind of thing, So the league formed this year. They actually formed in, January of this year is when the teams were put together. And they did so in kind of like they didn't use a draft. I don't know how you would describe it. They kind of just allocated players to teams, but these are former USFL or XFL teams. So when you look at the UFL today, you got 8 teams that are in 2 divisions. There's a USFL division and an XFL division. And basically what I like is I watched a little bit of the USFL. I watched a little bit of the XFL, but what the UFL has done right so far is they've taken kind of some of those things that were really good about, the other spring football leagues, and they've brought those to the surface, and then they've kind of let go of some of the ambitions that they might have had. So what I mean by that is, like, the USFL tried to compete with the NFL as far as with the draft. They tried to compete with the players that were coming out of college and the targets that the NFL had. So I don't know if like Herschel Walker. He was one of the first Heisman winning players to go to the USFL and not the NFL straight out of college. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I think the USF or the UFL has taken a different approach, and they kind of realize like they're not going to compete with the multi-billion-dollar NFL organization, right? Like they're the professional element, and so the UFL is a pro team. But to your point, it serves as a great place for folks that didn't get drafted. There's a number of NFL players who they felt like they weren't getting their chance on their NFL team based off the roles that they had there, and so they feel like they have a better chance to go into the UFL and make a name for themselves. And then some of the guys that didn't get picked up that played professionally and then they got dropped, and so other teams didn't pick them up, and then they ended up going to the UFL. But I don't want that to be a knock on it, because I have watched them. We're 3 weeks into the season. There's only one team that's undefeated so far, and the games, it's still football, right? But my favorite thing about the UFL is what we'll call the all access. So one of the teams that's playing, you get all access to, and what that means is you get to hear the coach and the quarterback on the sideline discussing what's a QB seeing, and then you get to hear the coach calling in the play to the quarterback, and then if the quarterback decides to audible and change that, you hear it because you hear him telling the huddle what the play is, the checks, all that kind of stuff. And then you'll hear him at the line, calling out checks or audibling. And so, that kind of access to even the referees, they basically, when they're going over a call, like if there's a flag, you can hear them discussing what they saw like in real time. So it's not this, kind of like, I'm not saying anything about the NFL, but it's like sometimes those guys go away, you don't hear what they say, and then they come back with a call, and you're like, what the hell? Like the thing that we thought isn't being called, or it's reversed, But in the UFL, I mean, you can really hear a lot of all the interactions between players, between the referees, the coach, So I think that's great.
John, you mind if I ask? Can you tell me some of the different rules that they have? Like, yeah. I know they have their fourth down, or they can declare either onside kick at any time, or like their fourth and.
I'm not sure about that one. I don't know all the rule changes. I mean, I think some of the. They do have a lot of those little nuanced rules and things like that are a little bit different, but for the most part, it's the same football that we know. But like in kind of one of those plays that Sean, that we opened up with, I think we saw 2 lateral passes. So that's like a legal thing you can do in UFL.
Yeah, I guess you can do 2 forward passes as long as the first one is completed from behind the line of scrimmage.
Right.
So you can throw twice. And
so there's a couple of those things, and I didn't pick all of them up, but some of the big ones are there's no fair catch, so there's always going to be a kickoff. They're compromised from the XFL had like a 20 from the 20-yard line, and they were definitely always trying to ensure a kickoff. For safety, I think they went to the 25, but there's no fair catch. They want you to have a kickoff. They want there to be a return. And then one big thing is the extra point rule. So they don't kick extra points at all. You have 3 different options for your extra point, if you will, after a touchdown. Touchdowns are still for 6, but you can either go for it from the 2-yard line for 1 point. You can go for it from the 5-yard line for 2 points, or you can go for 3 points by going for it at the 10-yard line. And so that's pretty dynamic. You have the potential to score 9 points total on a touchdown. Mm-hmm. That's a little different, I think.
And I do believe there's the fourth down rule where you can try to make a 4th and 18. Yeah. I believe it's a 4th and 18 where you can try to go for it. Instead of kicking, you can decide, you can choose, which I think in the last 2 weeks there were 2 games won doing the 4th and 18 play.
Yeah,
it was kind of exciting, kind of interesting concept.
Yeah, so it has to be the 4th quarter of the game. It's a 4th and 15, and so when it's to the fourth quarter of a game, after scoring, a team can either opt for a traditional onside kick, or they can do one offensive play from their 25-yard line with a 4th and 15 situation. So if you successfully gain 15 yards or more, then you'll retain possession of the ball. So it's kind of like a different type of onside kick without the kick, right?
Gotcha.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
Yeah. And another thing, John, the kicker, I forget the kicker's name, who's like Mr. All Leg.
Oh yeah, the Destroy YouTube guy.
The guy who's hit 64-yarder, 62-yarder, 54-yarder. This past week, the football that he used to kick the 64-yard field goal was put into the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
So so his football will go in there, because basically that ties the NFL record, I believe, at 64. So the UFL has representation into the Hall of Fame in its inaugural season.
How about that?
So that I thought that was kind of interesting. Another thing, again, you got the quarterback, AJ McCarron.
Yeah.
Perfect example, guy who was relegated to backup status. The good thing about this league being the summer is these guys get to play during the summer when other teams are going into training camp. They're actually playing competitive games. So in case of a quarterback injury, wide receiver, depth injury, whatever, these guys are ready to go come fall time if teams need to pull from these rosters. So I think that's an excellent, another advantage to the UFL.
Yeah, so it's generally going to go that way too, right? You're not going to see a whole lot of guys leaving the NFL to go play for the UFL, unless, like you're saying, they're not really getting a shot. But yeah, it's an opportunity for UFL and for undrafted guys to kind of go in there, show what they got, and still have a chance to play football professionally. That's another huge difference between the NFL and the UFL is the budget. Like, you don't have any coaches that are making $1 million in the UFL or players either. Their incentives are in the thousands of dollars, and it's kind of, a week-to-week kind of thing. They're not making a whole lot of money to play football, but it's an opportunity to potentially maybe get to the NFL still. So,
so let me ask you this question, just out of curiosity. I know, I think it's St. Louis. St. Louis has been really good at supporting their team. I think their home opener, they had like 44,000 people.
Nice.
Which was nice. Since then, you've had like a falling off of attendance and so on and so forth. Do you think that this league is going to be able to catch on? I know it's just starting out, but
I'm
really hopeful that it does, because I think it is a pipeline back to the NFL for some of these fringe guys.
Well, number one, it's football year round. It's springtime football. It's not interfering with it's not interfering with any of the NFL activities. I mean, and then the other thing is like, I don't understand why there's not more coverage of this or there's not more advertising. It's like, I didn't really hear much about the season starting 3 weeks ago, but I think it'll be successful. That's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to get on here, kind of talk about it. We talk about football a lot on this show. It's spring football. I think there's also a chance for us to have fresh and new opinions about something that is not, us regurgitating what all the pros are saying about sports in general. But before I go, I know I'm kind of running log on my segment here. I just wanted to kind of spit out these team names and then who the head coach was and their record, so you guys can kind of, I don't know, maybe we can pick a team. We can, make this a reoccurrence segment. But so right now, the best team in the UFL is a USFL team, and it's the Birmingham Stallions. They're coached by Skip Holtz, and they are currently 3-0. Michigan has a team called the Michigan Panthers, coached by Mike Nolan, and they are 2-1. The Memphis Showboats are coached by John DiFilippo, and they are 1-2. And then the Houston Roughnecks are coached by Curtis Johnson and are 0-3. So for the XFL teams, you got the DC Defenders, coached by Reggie Barlow. They're 2-1. The St. Louis Battlehawks are coached by Anthony Becht, and they are 2-1. And then you got the San Antonio Brahmas, coached by Wade Phillips, and they are 2-1. And then you got the Arlington Renegades, coached by Bob Stoops, who are 0-3. So I think this is I want to say it's an 8 to 10 week season. I got to double check that. It's not incredibly long, but it's only 3 weeks in. The games are on Saturdays, so check them out.
Sure. And one last thing, did you happen to catch that game where the YouTube the influencer broke his neck, the kicker?
I did not see it. I mean, I heard about it, but yeah, he ran out there and he made a hit, and I think that's how he broke his neck. Yeah.
He kind of put his neck right in the guy's stomach when he was tackling him, and what not to do when you're tackling.
Right, exactly. Kickers, chill out.
I'm going to start watching it because I do look forward to seeing these games. From the videos, they are exciting anyway. Sean,
they're kind of saying this is a last-ditch effort to try to have spring football, professional spring football. So I hope it sticks and catches on.
Sean, you got anything before we jump?
No, I think we're good to jump. Actually watching that top 10 video, it got my appetite. The juices flowing for football again.
It's still football. There's good stuff happening.
And I am not the hugest fan of college football because I think it's kind of slower and stuff. This is like full speed professional football, which is kind of cool to see. And I really hope a lot of these guys make it because I think there's a lot of unnoticed talent
for sure.
in that people just kind of, go about the wayside. McCarron has been a great.
That all access is great. It's another, and that's the other thing I wanted to say. The XFL used to try to go over the top, right? They used to try to make it more wrestling-esque, right? But they're taking some of the, he hate me. Yeah, exactly. So they took some of the stuff that the XFL did well, which was like, they're the ones that put cameramen on the field. And that's where the NFL got all those wires and the cameras they have. They took that from the XFL. So some of the things that they show, like they'll have a cameraman on the field running next to the kicker on a kickoff, so you'll get angles of plays that you don't generally see in football. And I thought that was cool too.
The last thing I want to say about this is I'm hopeful that Kansas City took stock in the fact that in that number 10 play that the wide receiver actually lined up on sides, which allowed that lateral to be accounted for. And they didn't have a flag thrown on them. So Kansas City watched that play number 10 and learned from it.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna take off.
All right, John. Thanks a lot, brother.
Yep.
Okay, and so we're about to move to our third quarter here. We didn't have a lot of comments in the first half, but we will address the comments in our overtime segment. So real quick, maybe for a quick halftime thing, if we could bring on everybody real quick, because I have a weird question to ask. It is not sports related, but I brought up Applebee's and their dietary concerns there. Is everyone here? Are you bone in or boneless wing, David?
I'm a bone in guy, man. Boneless wings are chicken nuggets. They're not wings, dude. I'm a bone in guy.
All right, Jeffrey.
David is a bone-in guy. Making sure that we emphasize that. I like chicken wings with bones because I don't necessarily understand how you have boneless wings because there's no such thing. So I'm not really sure what that part of the chicken's coming from. So I'm the wing. I need bones in the wings.
All right, KD.
Yep. I'm a bone-in type of guy myself as well. I can't eat the mystery meat. Don't know what that is. So you got to kind of stay away from it.
Eric.
So, I'm gonna look. It depends on the day, gentlemen. If I'm in a business meeting, I'm not eating wings with the bone in, just because here's the deal. I'm gonna make a big mess, and then I'm gonna have my suit all buffalo sauced, and I'm gonna look terrible because it's gonna be all over my beard. And so
He did say buffalo sauce. He surely didn't say.
But if I'm at home watching a game, I'm it's bone in because it's the meat is more fatty if they're boneless. So I enjoy the more lean meat. But it just depends on if I'm on the run or not.
All right. I just had to get your opinions because, first of all, no one is going to eat chicken wings at a business meeting. Okay, so you can take that. I mean, if you're going to do, George Costanza might.
It's happening.
But then go on be known as chicken wings instead of T-bone. Okay, but a boneless wing, it's a fucking chopped up chicken tender. That's it.
Now we know why he's a Steelers fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. Hey, listen, don't do that. Hey, Cerny's going to come off the top rope. Listen, I'll tell you right now. I know that.
I'm not speaking for all Steelers fans, just this one in particular.
So real quick, do you eat them with your pinky up?
Honestly, with some class, I'm sitting there eating. No, I don't eat them with the pinky up. But it depends. And I've also got kids, guys. So ideally, kids like chicken nuggets. I don't mind some chicken nuggets. None of us here can deny.
Chicken nuggets are delicious, but when we're asking about wings, I mean, I know you don't like meat, but you sure like the bone.
Eric dips it in his buffalo sauce like this.
There you go. All right. Well, I am sorry for that tangent. I just squirreled on it. Okay, so if we could just bring just KD up for a second here. So we've decided to do something here where it was an idea that kind of morphed into a lot of different things, but we wanted to pick our all-time team. And I had an idea for it, and then it kind of morphed, and I have no idea what we're doing anymore. So, Katie, would you please explain this? Because we do want to get this out and have our viewership also vote on these and talk about these things.
Absolutely. So we all as football fans have our own fantasies of, Ed Reed and Sean Taylor gracing the field at the same time, or Ray Lewis and Dick Buckers walking out of the huddle, representing their linebacker core, or whichever fantasies that you have, right? And so what we're doing is we have the From the Couch Pick Your Squad. And what we're going to do is basically do it position or group by group when it comes down to the positions. So it'll be the OGs of the game, not too old. We kind of want to keep it around the 80s and the 90s and down the line till present day. So basically, again, we're trying to come up with our own team, and you guys are more than welcome to join along. So what I would do is basically I'll create a graphic for the top 16 or 12 or even 8, depending on what we're doing or what position we're on for the week. And then you guys kind of pick from what we got. And what we're doing, we're not just putting any and everybody on here. We're kind of going with the top guys, whether it was in their era or the guys that we see overall in the sport itself. And what we're trying to do is come up with as close as possible to the all NFL team, if you will, and then have you guys pick from that by position. And so you can come up with your best secondary, whether you got Ronnie Lott as your safety, Steve Atwater as the other side, you got Deion Sanders, and you got Champ Bailey as your other cornerback. Those type of things that we're looking at. So what'll happen is the first one that we put up that's already in the group, it was the 8 secondary players. You were to pick 2 from that particular one. And then this next one that we're going to go over is going to be a total of 16 players. And we basically picked 3 from that. So it'll be two cornerbacks and then 1 particular cornerback or safety to play the nickel position should you decide to go there. And then we'll continually progress throughout the week, each episode of a different position group. And then by the time we're done, you guys will have your team. I'll have my team. Sean will have his team, and all the co-hosts will have their team. And then we'll kind of compare and contrast who we think has the best possible team. So,
all right. Well, thank you. That definitely makes it a lot easier for me. All right, so we can bring everyone back in, and let's start off with the graphic. So, Katie, you're obviously the best versed in this, so why don't you kind of lead us through the first segment, and then we'll move on the old timers, or these are current, right? You're muted, Katie. KD, you're muted.
Yep. So these are the current guys, right? And what we're doing here is basically we're going to pick, again, like I told you, 3 guys from this particular list. So as you guys see at the top, not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but I would hope everybody would know who these guys are. We got Darius Slade, Sauce Gardner, L'Jarius Sneed, Jair Alexander, Derek Stingley, Jalen Ramsey, Kyle Hamilton, AJ Terrell, Greg Newsome, Brian Branch, Tariq Wooten, Stephon Gilmore, and then we have Devin Witherspoon, Greg Ward, Patrick Surtain, and then Marshawn Lattimore. Again, so just real quick to look over those particular ones, those guys that you like, and then you can kind of pick what you think, hey, is going to benefit your team. Now, keep in mind the 2 people that you pick from the first one that we already posted in the group, just make sure it contrasts with what you already picked. Now, at the end of the day, you're the GM, so you pick who you want and just kind of make sure that stuff kind of goes together with what it is that you have. For instance, you can pick a cornerback and have him play safety. However, you kind of want to pick somebody that's known to be able to handle that position and so forth and so on. Because, again, when it comes down to the argumentative side of it, you got to make sure that, hey, you have a legitimate reason of why this particular player can handle the safety position or the nickelback position, not just because, hey, they run a 4.3 40 and I think they're good at that particular position. So.
Cool.
All right. So who wants to go first on this one?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So who wants to go? Who wants to lead off? Who they want to pick, and then we got to kind of capture these, if we will, who picked what. So,
well, I can start with mine. I'll do mine real quick. Out of this group, I like Devin Witherspoon. I like Marshawn Lattimore. I like Tariq Woolen. I like Branch. And can you scroll up for a minute to the top of the screen there, Katie?
Oh, we were picking 3.
Other way.
You're only getting 3.
You only get 3, man.
I'm sorry. Then I'll take Woolen, Lattimore, and Branch right now for those 3.
Okay, Wooten, Lattimore, and Branch. Okay. So make sure we got that down somewhere again, because we're gonna have to put that in the group. Okay. All right. Next person. Any volunteers who wants to pick this ride? Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. I'm going. My man Sauce. My man Sauce has got to be on this. He doesn't give up anything. So you got Sauce. Singley, young guy coming out. He's looking real good. So he's got a bright future ahead of him. I would take him. And Mr. Sneed up there has been shutting down number 1s all year long. And you want to talk about 3 you're going to pick? I got those 3. So.
Nice. Okay. All right. So between Jeff and Eric, who's next?
Okay. I'll take AJ Terrell. I think he quietly does a lot. He plays pretty good football. And in terms, if I'm building a team, he doesn't have quite the locker room presence or quite the personality that's going to conflict with other big personalities that are going to be a part of this team. So give me AJ Terrell. And then on the other side, I want Kyle Hamilton as a safety. He's an up-and-coming playmaking safety who's a quality defensive player who's only going to get better. And at my other corner for my third player, give me Alexander, another young corner who I think is up and coming and I think had a great year last year and I think is going to be a quality player.
Okay, got it. All right, Jeff, last but not least.
Yeah, I hate the fact that Eric said Alexander because I like that dude. So I'm not going to pick him just because I think Eric's thoughts are silly and whack jobbed out. As I'm joking, I'm not going to pick Alexander, though I like him probably better than almost anybody on this page. The fact that he's not been able to stay on the field for the last 2 seasons has been bothersome. And that's the same way I feel about Ward. In this instance, I'm going to go. I mean, Wooten is I love that dude. He's a physical guy that they bring back, that Seattle brings back, that Legion of Boom mentality. But I'm going to go Wooten, and I'm going to go Sauce Gardner, obviously. I mean, I don't think people are targeting him nearly as much. They gave him a lot of that veteran space, but as a rookie, and they've continued that for 2 years. But I like him. He's a great young cornerback. So I'm gonna have Wooten and the dude I just said on the corner. I forgot. And then look, I don't know what you took the players away, but I don't remember who they all are. But listen, but I like Stingley, right? So I'm going to go with Stingley, and I know that's not interchangeable. I think Stingley's a damn cornerback, but I'm going to stay with. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put Alexander there. I'm going to lie and go back and give Eric some props, because I think Jair Alexander is an exceptional player, and I think he's very skilled, and he does a great job. So those are my three: Sauce Gardner, and the other Wooten, and then
Alexander.
Jair Alexander. There you go.
Yeah, KD. Can I? I'm sorry, because I didn't see the top, and that's what. Then when you told me to pick three, enough. I would like to substitute Marshawn Lattimore with Sauce Gardner. I'll take Sauce Gardner over Lattimore.
Okay. All right. So
You like it, it's us.
We're going.
Only hey, listen. If Lattimore's playing the Bucks all 17 games, then I'm going to take Lattimore. He shuts down Evans. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I mean, he just crushes it. But everybody else, he's kind of. I mean, he's still great, but not as good.
So I'm kind of mixing and matching between two of y'all. So I'm going to take Kyle Hamilton to play my nickelback role, because he's kind of playing that just listed different for Baltimore already. And then I'm going to take the bigger, taller corners with Sauce Gardner and Tariq Wooten. Both of those guys are liked out of college. And both of those guys have given me everything I wanted when it comes down to being a cornerback. So it's so hard to focus right now. But those two cornerbacks have lived up to all of the expectations and any kind of grade that you can give a rookie. So Sauce Gardner, it doesn't matter which side. Tariq Wooten, again, it doesn't matter what side. And Kyle Hamilton be my three from this particular graphic. So,
all right. So real quick, can we just go over from? Does everyone remember who they picked from that first list of the OGs? Who had picked what? Because I went with Deion Sanders, and Ronnie Lott, and Ronnie Lott to me. So it's 1986. He's got his finger crushed. His team is a good contention team for the Super Bowl. And what's this guy do? You're either going to have surgery to fix this, and you're going to miss next season. And he's like, no, cut the damn thing off. That is a man right there. And just purely for that instance, I got to go Ronnie Lott. Who's next?
I think I messed up the rules. Were the three we just picked supposed to be in line with the three that we picked from before? Oh, well, look, none of those cornerbacks are starting over time.
So you picked two from the first graphic, which is the 8, and you should have picked 3 from here. Two cornerbacks or whatever you choose is up to you. You could have picked your 2 safeties from the first graphic, take your 2 corners here, and then take a nickel back.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner is going to end up playing linebacker for me at some point because, listen, I messed up. But I'm going to keep my team the way it is. But the bottom line is, when I look at that other list, I mean, that list was amazing, by the way. And I watched people that were really going through it and really getting frustrated about, like, there's no way I'd pick. There is not a player on that list that I wouldn't have taken and been happy with it, right? I mean, all of them were phenomenal. But in this regard, what I will tell you is I'm taking Ed Reed as a safety. I'm taking Troy Polamalu as a safety. And I'm not saying that Troy's better than Ronnie Lott because I don't believe that. But when I look at the two players, when I look at the football acumen and the knowledge and the look, I know you like Troy Polamalu, Eric. He's not better than Ronnie Lott, but again, you could say he was. But Troy Polamalu is the guy. But I just think Ed Reed helps him on the side. I mean, that's why I'm if I didn't have Ed Reed, I wouldn't pick Troy. I'd have to go somewhere else, like some Bills safety. No, but Troy Polamalu and Ed Reed are my safeties. Those are just the two. But Deion Sanders is my guy in every position ever. So you could put Deion Sanders there too. I'll just have a guy that sits on the bench.
No, to me, my safeties, man, dude, it's Ronnie Lott. I mean, Ronnie Lott is the epitome of safety. I mean, in the time that he played, just phenomenal. And Ed Reed, just he is probably the best safety from the time he started playing until the time he finished. I don't think he ever went down one notch from his rookie season to his final season in the NFL. He played at that consistent level every year. So those are my safeties.
Yeah, and considering that Ed Reed had the same beard as KD has right now, and he was still intercepting Tom Brady. that says a lot. Eric, you go, then KD.
I can't even. I mean, I just Jeff has a great way of getting in my head and saying some outlandish stuff, and I'll spend all day long trying to decipher how he thinks and why he thinks the way he does and why he moves his chess piece way out into oblivion. Troy Polamalu and Ed Reed are the answers. But Ryan Dawkins is in the discussion, and he's not one we talk about because he is the epitome of a hard-hitting safety, and he did everything Ronnie Lott did, but better. And you can argue that all day long, but he was the enforcer, and he played when the game was faster and the game was tougher. So ideally with better athletes. And so, but the answer is they complement each other. Polamalu can do the run, he can do the blitz, and he can do that. And Ed Reed can be back in coverage and cover for him, and they would play off each other, and they're probably the two greatest safeties of all time.
Wait, time out for 1 second. You said Troy Polamalu played in the NFL when the NFL was tougher?
The athletes are harder to cover than they are now. You disagree with me? Do you think the wide receivers have gotten slow?
Save it for overtime. We're almost there.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I'll bring it up first. KD, what you got?
I'm taking Polamalu and Ed Reed, and here's my reason. My reason is because I can drop into cover 3 more easily that way. Because of having the 2 cornerbacks that I picked earlier, and then I can drop Kyle Hamilton and Troy Polamalu down in the box to help out with the run if need be, or go get the quarterback. And then I have Ed Reed patrolling the middle of the field from hash to hash. So I love my particular defense so far.
All right, perfect. Well, that's going to wrap up this portion of the show. And from everyone from the Couch Sports Talk Radio, thank you for watching. We're going to go immediately into overtime. And now David and Eric are going to get into this tougher conversation. David.
I'm gonna bring J-Dub into the show in case he has anything to add. I'm going to bring him up. But, Eric, I do have to take issue. I have to take issue when you say that the NFL was tougher. I'm telling you, from the time Ronnie Lott was in the league till Troy Polamalu, and I'm not taking anything away from Troy Polamalu, but here's my issue. Back in those days, the NFL started to change the rules to make it so much more offensively liberal. Before that, you ask any wide receiver who they feared going across the middle with, Ronnie Lott was right there. That dude laid the body, and you couldn't get across the middle. You ran into a Ronnie Lott. Troy Polamalu, great, fantastic. I love him. I'm not bad-mouthing him. I'm not saying that he wasn't a great safety. But if I had to have a safety on my team, that's the guy I'm taking because I go across the middle. Ronnie Lott's there. I don't go across the middle.
I mean, do you remember when Troy Polamalu would anticipate the snap count and then jump across the line before like right when the ball was hyped.
Sure.
I mean,
Phenomenal IQ, amazing.
yeah.
Wait, just real quick, and let me. I'm not going to say nothing else, Eric. No, stay online. No, don't mute yourself because I'm not going to continue talking. I just want to say this one thing, please. But I mean, I know I said he's better, and I believe Ronnie Lott's better. But here's the deal: I'm not saying that Ronnie Lott is like I'm not talking about where I believe Marino's a top 10 quarterback and Ben Roethlisberger isn't even close, because that's true in my opinion. I don't believe that we're talking Ronnie Lott and Troy Polamalu as like this crazy ass gap between these folks. I think that they're interchangeable. They're amazing. They're both amazing. I'm not just trying to hurt your feelings. I still think Ronnie Lott's better.
So in 2010, I shared this during the show. In 2010, the NFL changed the rules because of the player safety initiative. They changed it not because of Ronnie Lott or anything Ronnie Lott had ever done. They changed it because Troy Polamalu, James Harrison, and Ryan Hart were putting people in body bags. So these people were getting.
Hey, that's about the same time they came out with the Hines Ward rule too, which changed the way that receivers could block.
Because it was too hard to play against these guys. So these guys, the NFL is harder. It is harder for these guys to play defense now than it was for Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott.
Are you sure that was the Troy Polamalu rule, or was it the Vontaze Burfict rule?
No, it was. I shared it. They changed it because James Harrison knocked two guys out in one game. Ryan Clark knocked out Wes Welker over the middle, and Polamalu was killing people over the middle.
No, Jack Tatum probably put a guy in a body bag.
But to be honest with you,
Jack Tatum put a guy in a body bag or left him paralyzed.
Polamalu could cover in his prime. He could blitz, and he could do things Ronnie Lott could not do. Polamalu was covering the number one wide receiver in a Super Bowl. Well, Ronnie Lott was an enforcer over the middle. Polamalu is more versatile. He could do more things. That is why he is better than Ronnie Lott.
Hey, real quick, I'm just throwing this out there. You can say that, but everybody has a role, right? So I would tell you, to your argument, Ronnie Lott had 4 Super Bowls. Troy Polamalu doesn't. And there's a scheme in which was run, and Troy Polamalu ran his scheme because Ronnie Lott has 4 Super Bowls, but you can go back and look because San Francisco has how many? Joe Montana has how many Super Bowls? Because guess who played on all 4 of those Super Bowls? I think it was a guy named Ronnie Lott. Anyway, neither here nor there. It doesn't matter that because only the quarterback gets the Super Bowl because everybody else is just a player on the team. I can get that. And again, I'm not arguing your points. And I know that every Steeler fan in the world loves the NFL changed rules because these Steelers players. But by the way, I know Hines Ward, the crack, is it the crackback block? What is it?
Yeah.
I know that was a Hines Ward led thing, but don't get me wrong. There was other receivers doing it too at that same time. Don't get me wrong. James Harrison was killing people. You're right. But so was Ray Lewis. And so was, I get it. Player safety is not just because the Steelers were doing it. So, but all that, Sean, okay. But all that being said, you can say what Troy Polamalu was doing based on a defensive scheme that was dialed up by Cowher and Tomlin. And that's great. It's versatile. But at the same token, guys, San Francisco didn't need you because San Francisco's total defense had depth and Pro Bowlers too, or Hall of Famers, unlike the Steelers' depth because they never have had that. I'm kidding, John. That was a joke for Eric, not you. But at the end of the day, they were. No, but again, we don't have to continue talking about this. I think they're both phenomenal. My opinion is Ronnie Lott's better, but I'm telling you, it's not. John, when I said what I said about why I would pick Troy Polamalu is specifically because of what you brought up. Do you remember the times he would anticipate a snap count and jump over? Yes, that is to me, by the way, is probably the best characteristic about that dude over every single defender in the history of the NFL. I love Troy Polamalu, but I still pick Ronnie Lott and who's better, right? Anyway, continue.
Okay. And now that we're in overtime and now that we're talking and debating different stuff, I want to bring up this debate because this one really baffled me from Eric, and I want other people's opinions. Because we were discussing in our chat, and I'm sure you guys all saw this, about what makes a defensive end and having a shutdown cornerback or a cornerback makes a defensive end better. And that is the most absurd argument that a cornerback makes a defensive end better. That's the most absurd argument I've ever heard in my entire life. Entire life. Your front seven makes an average secondary fantastic. Okay, because Eric thought that the quarterback had 3 seconds to decide where he was going to go with the ball. And that's not true. They have about 2.8 seconds, 2.5 seconds to determine where the ball is going to be.
Hey, 2.8 seconds and 3 seconds. That's 0.2
Right.
seconds, Dave. We're talking.
Yeah, in 3 seconds, you're too late. Okay, and here's the deal. A guy like TJ Watt gets off the ball, probably in the backfield if he's good, in 1.5, 1.8, maybe 2 seconds. Okay, I don't think that has anything to do with the cornerback being a good player. Jeff, somebody help me with this argument because it just does not make sense to me.
I'm actually going to go against you, David. I'm going to go against you.
Good.
And I see what you're saying, but we have heard so many times during the NFL season that was a coverage sack. That was a coverage sack because the DBs are doing their damn job. And when the defensive lineman couldn't get there, the DBs held those receivers down. They recovered. The guy had no place to go with the ball. So, yes, your defensive line can make corners look great, and your corners can make your defensive line look great. The Jets, they are number one. Their corners, and everybody shuts people down. Gives their D line time to get in there. Okay, Jeff is shaking his head. Look, he is about to start singing some Anthrax tunes, so let's let him speak.
Hey, so here's the deal. You do hear coverage sacks. And that is not a fake thing. And there are coverage sacks. And in a perfect world, to Eric's point, it would be perfect. And you'd have harmony, and you'd have a defensive line benefiting off of secondary, and you'd have linebackers and everybody be doing great, and everything would be awesome. But I'm going to tell you this, and believe me or don't, and I don't care. Here's the reality. Yes, there are coverage sacks, usually because the quarterback's holding on the ball, and you can see the video. Like, look at every guy covered, and usually what happens is a good quarterback throws the ball out of bounds, right, and doesn't take a sack because they know the time limit's ticking, right? But neither here nor there. I will say this: the Jets are not a coverage sack team. Do they do it? Yes, but here's the deal: when you look at if you tell me a team truly in the history of the NFL, please, because I'm going to counter it, because I'm not arguing that cornerbacks don't make a defensive end's job easier or vice versa. What I am saying is this: give me a team in the history of the NFL with such a stout secondary that their defensive line benefited. Just want to know now. And go ahead.
Seahawks, Legion of Boom.
No. I would disagree. Now, listen, I will tell you this, Cerny, that's probably a team that's competitive. I mean, comparable, right? By the only one, because the Legion of Boom was phenomenal with Chancellor and Sherman, that whole group. But then tell me about the front seven, because I'll tell you that front seven dominated the front seven on every team that year. So when you look at their front seven, you could shake your head, Eric. Tell me a better front seven. On those years, show me a better front seven. And it's not going to happen. The bottom line is the Jets have – what secondary did the Jets have besides Revis? And I know Revis was the shit. Deion Sanders.
Cromartie?
Who?
Cromartie?
Yeah, Cromartie was in his prime. He was shutting people down. And that ideally, because they were playing sticky and they wouldn't make the quarterback hold on to it an extra tick, that would allow your pass rushers to get the sack. Because ideally, it's a complementary thing. And your corners you have to rely on your corners to be where they need to be in the zone defense, and your pass rushers then have a time limit to get there, and they feed off each other. And if one's not good, the other one's is going to struggle.
Okay.
For example, Tom Brady would pick apart great front sevens if the secondary sucks.
I'll appreciate that, but let me just add this, and then I'll put myself on mute, Dave. I'll put myself on mute. Okay. I'll give you the 2010 Jets with Cromartie and Revis. I'll give you the Legion of Boom. That's awesome. And I'll use the Steelers as a specific example for the historically horrible secondary minus a Woodson and a Palomalo, right? Because your front seven has always made your secondary your sorry ass second. And you know what, John? This is why I actually like you, because I know that you and I have had these conversations about your secondary for years about get rid of this guy and get rid of this guy, but the rest of your defense is pushing. Because here's the deal: without your front seven, or at least your one guy in the end, your secondary gets raped. all the time. Buffalo, it's the same way with Buffalo, by the way. So I mean, it's not a big deal. And oh, by the way, the rest of the NFL is very much alike. Now, I'm not saying coverage secondary folks aren't great to have and you need them. I agree with that. But I will tell you, minus the 2010 Jets and the Legion of Boom, there's not another. The examples are so far off. It's like a punt return for a touchdown nowadays. It happens. It's not normal. It's not the every play. Tell me.
I will do this.
I think it's harder to quantify.
What's that?
I think it happens all the time. It's just it's not necessarily obvious that that's what's happening on the field when your coverage is allowing your front seven to dominate. I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive that that's happening. So I don't know if you see it when it's in motion there.
I think it's more the front seven doesn't give the quarterback the opportunity to take to allow. I'll let him. I'm going to let him speak. Trust me. But I think it's your front seven that doesn't allow the quarterback the opportunity to find the open guy. Because perfect example. You talk about the Buffalo Bills. You talk about no matter what, they went to 4 straight Super Bowls. Their team was crap. Their team was garbage. They didn't win. They didn't do this. But here's the deal. Bruce Smith was one of the greatest sackers of all time. Okay, tell me the Bills secondary when he had 20 sacks in the season. Tell me who their secondary was. Who was their secondary who made Bruce Smith a better defensive end?
It really didn't matter. They weren't that good.
But guess what? The front seven, they weren't that good, but they went to 4 straight Super Bowls.
Dave, can I get a word in?
Sure.
I mean, ideally, this is a subject I brought, and I wanted KD to mention it because we coach, and so KD, when I'm done, but ideally, I can tell you, corners are drafted in the first round all the time, and we had some great front sevens, and Tom Brady, because our secondary wasn't very good at a time period, was not very good. You can leave that down, buddy. Because it wasn't very good, we got picked. Thank you. We got picked apart. And so ideally, Brady would pick that apart. We won the Super Bowl, and you could say our secondary sucked when we won the Super Bowl, but Brian McFadden and Ike Taylor were 2 good, really good corners, and Ryan Clark and Troy Polamalu were probably one of the best safety tandems of all time. And that they fed off each other because they were great, and because they fed off each other, and the pass rush was able to get it done. The second, you could say you disagree, but it takes both. They have to work in tandem in order for a defense to function.
KD, go ahead, boss.
All right. So I'm going to give both of you guys a half a point, and I'm going to tell you why. Because every defense that is called has a coverage associated with it. Every coverage that's associated has a pass rush associated with it, right? And they feed hand in hand. They're intertwined, right? So if one doesn't do their job, the other one is busted. I've used my Ravens, my 2023 Ravens, right? Because nobody can definitively say, hey, we had a 20-plus sacks guy on our roster, and nobody said we could have an 8 interception guy on our roster, right? And that's a prime example of what we're talking about right here. I don't always get home, right? I can move the quarterback off his spot, but guess what? Guess who's right there in the passing lane? One of my secondary guys. I don't get the interception. Such and such doesn't get the sack. It's a throwaway. And just like what J-Dub was saying, it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Because if it's not a sack, if it's not an interception, right, does it go down as a QB hurry for somebody? We don't know. We would never know that. So again, I think I'm not sitting there saying, hey, it's not worth debating. It's worth debating. It's worth talking about. But I think more or less it's the defense is basically together in everything they do. Because again, if that wasn't the case, so at the snap, you would get the pass rush a play or defensive play. And then as people start running certain places, do you give the secondary a coverage? No, you give it all together. So again, when it comes down to that, I still say it again, I'll give both of you guys a half point because it does matter. If I beat my guy within a half a second or 1 second, of course it better be something big for the defense, whether it's a sack or interception. But then if I'm also my guy can't get off the line of scrimmage, right? So guess what? That forces the quarterback to hold on to the ball like we were talking about, Russell Wilson with 6 seconds, right? So if you can't beat press, that's one of the things that's stifles a lot of offenses. You can't beat press. Pittsburgh is a really good press. I'm using the next example. Pittsburgh's a really good press team. Then guess what? I'm probably going to get a lot of sacks or probably a lot of quarterback hurries.
Well,
All
right.
right,
And
Morgan Freeman, you cannot give us a half a point each. You have played
okay.
God like you are.
We were arguing about who made whose jobs easier, and the answer is both. Because again, if I don't allow my guy to beat me, right, is the quarterback just going to throw the ball up just to throw it up?
Listen, I'm gonna argue this to an extreme, right? So I'll just say where it ends to me. If the defensive line provides 10 seconds for the quarterback to throw a ball, he beats the secondary 10 times out of 10 because the coverage on a receiver for 10 seconds is not acceptable, right? We know that because there's a route and now I'm finding an open guy. So it's just not real. So if I allow the offensive line to have, or the defensive line to have no pressure, I'm crushing my secondary. On the flip of that is if my defensive line does rush and does everything right, if I have a shitty corner, right, then he's going to get beat, or better receivers, right? When I look at it, I don't think it's comparable. I think that one definitely outweighs the other. I'm not saying, again, Katie, this is no different than a running game with a orchestrated offensive line winning where they're supposed to win. The bottom line is the offense as a whole and the defense as a whole, when in sync and in unison and harmonized, they're supposed to do things to benefit each other. I can understand that wholeheartedly. All I'm saying is, and I know that there's stats that aren't covered, I'm saying is you'll hear that's a covered sack. You do all season long. But I'll tell you, what you see is the pressure from the front that's benefiting the back end more times than the flip. You see that more. I'm not, and if you know a lot about football, you can look there and say, man, like, okay, case in point, play a Super Bowl, right? Or not Super Bowl, playoff game, Miami versus Kansas City. Snead jammed the piss out of Tyreek Hill, right? Perfect. That was a great defensive play. To your point, Eric and Katie and even Sean, you're exactly right. That disrupted a route. That guy's not catching it. Who gives a damn what the ends did, right? That dude did it. But the reality is how often do we watch games where they're not sticking them like that? It just depends on it. But the line is constantly pushing. There's defensive by guys that shut it down. I get it. There's a select few. I wouldn't say there's a single shutdown corner in the NFL right now, like back in the Revis, Sanders, even the Woodsons, Charles Woodson's, and Rod Woodson days. Those were different. I don't see any shutdown corners. Not like that. But
well, and to Jeff's point about the shutdown corner, I think we were talking about this, and I will say, I think the days of the shutdown corner, the Sanders, those guys, it's over, because the defense and the rules that are put in place to benefit the offense makes the art of the shutdown cornerback very few and far between, because if you're a shutdown cornerback, you're jamming the guy, you're hitting the guy, you're touching the guy, it's a penalty. It's a penalty. You're getting pass interference calls, you're doing all that. So the way they used to play, where your cornerback and wide receiver could fight for the ball and fight for position, right away a yellow flag comes out. So the shutdown corner, but to this point, and me and Jeffrey can both agree that Taron Johnson for the Buffalo Bills he's awful. I don't think he deserved another contract in Buffalo. But 2 years ago, and that's fine, but 2 years ago, when Von Miller was healthy, Taron Johnson had 6 interceptions. Does that make him Trayvon Diggs, who had 7 that year? Does it make him some all-world corner? No, it's because our pass rush got to the quarterback and forced them to throw the ball. It's not because Taron Johnson is some great nickel coverage cornerback. It's because the pass rush got to the quarterback. And that's what allowed things like that to happen. Sean, go ahead. Ask your question.
All right. So, NFC East football.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Philadelphia Eagles, who last year went 11-1, and then they kind of got figured out, and they crapped the bed. Now they got a lot of new weapons. Dallas lost a little bit, but they won the NFC East. I know it's before the draft and everything. Maybe it's a little early, but right now as it stands, who do you think Philadelphia is still exposed and doesn't win the NFC East, or do you think Philadelphia right now is a better team and is going to win the NFC East?
Philadelphia is a better team and is going to win the NFC East. I mean, I think I got to be honest, Sean. I don't think it's player wise, and I don't think they got figured out. I think they have some internal issues even now, right? So I think there's still some stuff. I don't know. I'm not in the locker room, and I can always speculate like Eric and say random shit. But at the end of the day, I don't know what the problem was. I wish I did. The Cowboys are an interesting thing to me. They didn't do anything, and they when I looked at their running back room. It's a little concerning because that's how Dak Prescott actually moves well, right? Is having a solid run game. He's got talent on the outside, but I look at the running backs and I'm like, I don't know, like none of these dudes are real starters in the NFL, right? Today. But I look at Philly and they had what their issues they said were pretty much was the inability to get off on the run. They addressed that by signing arguably the best free agent that was out there in Barkley, right? So I think Philadelphia, but for all intents and purposes, and every damn person that signed with them, I don't even know how they have the money. They stayed healthy. They brought in new talent, skilled talent, and I think that they've in that regard have set themselves up to be the.
I would say this. I'm gonna say this, and it might upset Eric and it might upset Cerny, but Dallas hasn't done too much in free agency. But I'm on X all the time, and there's a Steelers insider who said that Kenny Pickett wasn't happy, said he wasn't happy because he didn't get the fair shake and that he was going to be traded before the trade happened.
Nobody cares what Kenny Pickett thinks.
I would just tell you, Pittsburgh is not married to Najee Harris, and I would look for a trade to Dallas. You can roll your eyes, buddy, but it's
no, Pittsburgh's not married to any player. Number one,
that's what I'm saying is. But what I'm telling you, and I'm not saying it to get you guys riled up. All I'm telling you is this person on X who is a Steelers insider and has a source inside Pittsburgh has said Najee Harris is not in the Steelers' plans. They want to give Jalen Warren the ball. They want him to be
Jalen Warren undrafted.
Enough. I gotta put an end to this. Take away the logical logic term because we're getting outside of logical. So we have Ian Rappaport that has some random ass that's hanging out at Fermani's, and he heard that because Jalen Warren was averaging 5.7 yards a carry that Najee Harris wants to be traded.
Not Ian Rappaport.
And he blocked me on Twitter because he made some bullshit story too about Ben Roethlisberger years ago, and then I asked him. I said, "Well, tell me who your source is, because I've got sources inside the. Thank you. I've got sources inside the locker room too. And I've got a lot of sources inside Pittsburgh, and I can tell you that my sources told me that his unnamed sources is full of shit. And so ideally, that Najee Harris is maybe not get a fifth-year option because running backs will get the wheels run off, and then maybe he's not back for a fifth year. But this is not a Pittsburgh conversation. This is a Dallas Cowboys conversation. And if Dallas Cowboys offer a first-round pick for Najee Harris, that's a conversation. But he ain't going to.
You value your players way too much. First-round pick.
That's how they're going to trade him.
When was the last Buffalo Bills running back to go over 1,000 yards 4 seasons in a row?
Yeah, I mean, so you can hang on all you want. James Cook has a great year.
Hey, wait, hold on, time out, real quick. Listen, I don't even know who the fuck David's talking about when it comes to the insider, but I've seen that thing for like 3.5 weeks everywhere I've looked. If you Google Najee Harris and you Google to Dallas, it's a conversation because again, to the point.
When there's smoke, there's fire, right, Eric?
I'm talking. Hold on.
Smoke and fire.
Hey, shut the fuck up. Najee Harris to Pittsburgh or to Dallas makes sense in the sense that you have Warren, who's an undrafted guy without dollar uses. You guys want more, you want to have more space. It makes sense from the conversation. What the fuck does that have to do with 4,000-yard seasons in Buffalo or James Cook? This is a Cowboys conversation with a real life, no shit thing that was said. No different than 6 months ago, Eric, when Diggs is going to get traded and all that shit, and everybody's telling you shut the fuck up and all this. I mean, the bottom line is, it's a Cowboys conversation. They don't have a running back room for shit. Najee Harris is an ideal fit, ideally, for them. And if they can get something for him, so be it. I'm not an insider for the Steelers, and I couldn't give two shits, and I couldn't give two fucks about Dallas. But in this conversation, the reality is Najee Harris has been tied to Dallas. No different than T. Higgins being tied to Pittsburgh, or Boyd being tied to Pittsburgh, or Ayuk being tied to Pittsburgh.
So here. Let me answer the question real quick, and I answered it. Unless they get really good value, they're not trading him for a front pick. But you could go on Google and you could look up any player, and any player's on the league right now because it's freaking April. And so,
Eric, let me ask you a question. What's good value for a running back? A 4th-round pick. A 4th-round pick. That's good value for a running back. Why is Najee Harris worth the 1st, but 31 other running backs are worth the 4th?
That's what I'm telling you. They're not trading him because he's had.
How do you know? They weren't trading Diggs. You told us when they were trading Diggs last year. You told us now. Now all of a sudden, Najee Harris is some untouchable commodity.
It's a week till the draft. They would have traded him a long time ago. And so if that was going to happen, that would have been done.
How is Najee Harris an untouchable commodity? But every other player in the NFL for 31 other NFL teams is a commodity.
Already made their offseason plans.
Because he's a Steeler.
They're not going to change their offseason plans.
What you don't know their offseason plans.
I do know they execute.
What do you know? What have they done? Have they got a receiver yet? They haven't even paid for a receiver. They got Van Jefferson.
Can I answer the Eagles question?
Katie, go ahead, man.
Holy crap, man. Can I answer the Eagles question? All right. The issue with the Eagles is what people don't want to admit is their secondary, right? So everything they've upgraded and all that stuff is great. What we were seeing later on in the playoffs and down the line is people weren't afraid of them in the secondary. So you gotta get better in the secondary. I don't know if you get younger. I don't know if you get a guy that can take away the number one. I have no idea exactly what they need, but I know they need secondary help. Because I'm sorry, Bradbury is not going to be the answer. And then again, Darius Slay, sometimes he can gamble. And if he gambles, he's not going to win many of those gambles. So again, you need better secondary play. And then, oh yeah, by the way, you need to really, really cash in on some of those rookie Georgia defensive linemen that you drafted. So they got to make sure that they basically come together and pay due of their first round picks that they've got. So.
Yeah, I will say that the Devonta Smith, when he signed the contract and had his press conference, okay, I think we understand the issue with Philadelphia, and it was their wide receiver room because basically Devonta Smith came out and said it's great to have two alphas in the wide receiver room. So whatever the issue was between Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown or whoever, I think that was real. I think it is real. The fact that, he basically came out and said having two alpha wide receivers in that situation can cause tension because you got two guys who want the ball and there's only one football to be had on the field. And again, I think we've talked about this just in general. And we look at the Houston Texans and we look at what they've done offensively. You look at some of these other teams who put these super squads together. And I'm not saying it's going to happen to the Texans, but the one thing I will say that I think it permeates throughout the NFL when you have receivers like that, just like George Pickens in Pittsburgh, just like Deontay Johnson, you ain't getting the ball, you're complaining that you're not getting the ball. And there's that back and forth between the wide receiver room. And maybe not that Deontay needed the ball or George Pickens didn't need the ball or whatever. I'm just saying I'm
not going to buy that at all.
Well,
AJ Brown played with who in college?
I don't know.
DK Metcalf.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, but look at my point is, okay, and this is the reason I say this. In college, it's one thing. Yes, you're trying to get drafted. In college, you're trying to get all those things taken care of. In the NFL, it's about the bag. It's about making your money. And if you're not catching 100 balls or you're not doing this, you ain't making your money. And so when you are the alpha in the room and you are the number one guy and you are being overlooked for the number two, and I want my money and I want to be able to make my money. And
no,
it's true.
Not at all. Not at all. You run 1,000 plays. You run 1,000 plays on average in the NFL. 1,000 plays.
Mm-hmm.
You get targeted 150 times.
Sure.
You got to make your targets count. That's period. Yep. Nobody's going to go out of the way to feed you the ball because you have an ego problem. The issue is this. Say it again. The issue is the trust, the lack of trust within Sirianni. That's the issue. You lost the guy, Dom, whoever the heck he was, and your team got deflated. Your team got deflated. For whatever reason, they were distracted, whatever it may be. And then guess what? People went after you guys because you couldn't score 40 points. You couldn't score 35 points.
Mm-hmm.
To the point, who beat them last year? I think the Jets beat them last year, right? 14-12 or something like that. So think about that offense. Those both alphas that we were talking about didn't score 20 points.
I get it.
So when it comes down to this, again, I still say the same thing. I'll say it again. Your attitude and you're the alpha and all this other stuff. Let's be honest. Everybody in the fucking NFL is an alpha. Guess what? They're better than the average football player across America, across the globe. So again, when it comes down to it, I don't buy into the alpha thing because Devontae Smith grew up playing with other alphas.
Well, sure. So then, okay. So if it's the alpha thing, if it's not the alpha thing, is it the diva thing? I mean, Stephon Diggs was a diva. Stephon Diggs had to get out because he was a diva. Stephon Diggs got 150 targets. That wasn't good enough for him. Okay. And to the point, I think Stephon Diggs.
All right. Look.
No, hold on, Jeff. Let me finish because
I know because Eric's been trying to answer for like fucking an hour, and now you're talking about Diggs, and I don't even know why the fuck the hell we got to Buffalo.
Okay, go ahead.
Welcome to From the Couch Sports Talk Radio. When Cerny, when we attack the Steelers and then we end up talking about Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills, just like our chat. Listen here. The question was: is Philadelphia the team in the NFC East? And then we got on to Deontay Johnson, and we got into Kenny Pickett, and Cerny and I could care less about Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett didn't want to compete, so he's gone. So the question is Philadelphia the team to beat? Philadelphia, I've seen this story with Nnamdi Asomugha when they built their dream team back in the day. And Philadelphia often puts a dream team together, and the chemistry isn't right because, like KD mentioned, and KD was correct, the coaching staff and the buy-in, it all has to work with management, and it all has to function together. And it didn't function, and it fell apart. So the question is, can Jalen Hurts become the leader of the locker room, and can he rally these guys together? And you can have an all-star team. They've had all-star teams before, and that doesn't work. And so am I taking the field or am I taking the Philadelphia Eagles? I am taking the field. I think Dallas will get a quality running back in the second and third round that will do the job. I think Dallas will be competitive. And I think the Washington Redskins are going to get a quality quarterback and have a Houston Texans type rebuild quicker than you think. Or they're not Washington Redskins anymore.
He make Commanders.
Yeah.
So,
whatever.
Listen.
With that being said, J-Dub, you got anything to add, or should we wrap this?
I think we're good. What do you guys think?
All right. Well, again, thank you for watching From the Couch Sports Talk Radio. We will see you next week.
Y'all be good.